Oye, mi gente, if there's one thing we love doing here at Pero, let me tell you, it is celebrating our Cuban culture. And that's why we're happy to tell you that Cuba Nostalgia is back in 2022 for its 23rd year. That's right, Cuba Nostalgia, a celebration of the richness of Cuban culture, history, and tradition is back May 21st and May 22nd at the Miami-Dade County Fairgrounds. Come experience the art and exhibits like recreations of classic Cuban landmarks like El Museo de Bellas Artes and El Tropicana, and of course, you know, there's food and Cuban cocktails. I mean, have you ever known Cubans to have an event without comida y trago? Oh, and we almost forgot, there's also free concerts every day. Así que get your tickets today. Just visit cubanostalgia.org to make sure you don't miss out on Cuba Nostalgia May 21st and 22nd. After all, it's more than an event, it's a Cuban experience.
Hey everyone, this is DJ.
And this is Ish.
And this is Season 5 of Pero Let Me Tell You.
So we are here today with artist, sculptor, multimedia, maven. I don't know. I'm sitting here in his living room and I'm looking around and everything is so damn beautiful. Alexander Mijares, thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, I got to tell you, you're one of those people that when we first started the show, you were on my radar to get for the show. Awesome. Because your artwork, I mean, it sounds like I'm blowing smoke up your ass. I'm not. I promise. If I didn't like your artwork, I would not have asked you to be on the show. There's just something about it that I just love, like the energy, the flow, the colors. And then I read that you are self-taught.
Yeah.
That's insane to me, dude.
Yeah, it was super weird because I used to doodle as a kid, like in my classrooms and whatnot. I'm 37 right now. So when
really?
I was
wow.
Yeah,
you must moisturize because you look phenomenal, sir, with a big old bushy head of hair.
I drink a lot of water and I eat a lot of meat.
Well, I feel like one of those is not recommended, but I'm going to leave it up to the listeners.
So I used to doodle like in all my books, and I mean, I think like in 5th grade, I drew King Triton or whatever of like the whole mermaid like freehand. But that was my thing, and back then, they didn't really know, or maybe some people did, but they really didn't really emphasize on like learning disabilities and whatnot. So I was a very visual learner at, I think, the age of like 10 or 12. I tested at the capacity of a 21-year-old as far as visual, like reading and I guess like I basically I can walk into a restaurant and I can literally step out and I can tell you who wears what color shoes, what they were wearing, like hats, like.
Oh wow, you have like a what is
photographic
it?
memory.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say didactic, but yeah, photographic.
So I was very like visual like that at a very young age, but in the classroom, they would try to teach, and of course, if you don't know how to teach someone who has a learning disability, you just think that they don't know what's going on and they're distracting the class.
Yeah, the kid's slow.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just couldn't figure out, like, the way they were teaching wasn't my style, so I wasn't getting it. So what do? I started doodling in my books. If you look at all my old school books, literally everyone had a mustache, or I drew hair on them, or a leg, or just doodled on all. Basically, so I looked like I knew what I was reading, and
at least you weren't being disruptive, right?
Yeah. But they called me because then people were looking at me while I would doodle, so I was being disruptive. So then they would throw me out of the classroom. Okay. And basically, I spent most of my middle school like in a hallway.
Oh, geez. What school did you go to?
Dade Christian. Okay. And the problem is that they. I guess they didn't even know what I was doing, like affecting, but like my basic grammar, it's gotten better now, but basic grammar and basic math is horrible. Really? Because those are the ages they would teach them in, and I lived in the hallway.
Yeah, you just weren't there for the lesson.
I was amazing at science and cutting stuff open and frogs and stuff that it required my hands and being interactive. I was very good at.
So you're very tactile.
Yeah.
Okay.
So fast forward to college. And I am no longer.
Well, that was a great hallway classroom if you got to college.
Yeah,
I'll say. I mean, you learned something in the hallway.
I did a lot of cheating. Seriously.
But you're a successful artist now, and so that's behind you.
They you know, I had a lot of street smarts, and one way or another I had to get by, whether I had to, you know, I had to make it work for myself.
Right,
You know,
figure it
whether I had to cheat, you know, or steal exams or look over someone's shoulders. It was just to get me to the next step, because we live in an age where unless you have a diploma, you're an idiot. But the best education I had was having older friends who, you know, basically, you know, like mentors or people. Like my dad had a guy who, you know, I think my dad didn't go to college, but he always say he grew up a school of hard knocks. Like, you know, he had mentors who were older than him who taught him everything. Like you get kids now and you're like, do you know how to reconcile your bank account? No, I know. Like, so like DeSantis doing that thing now where he's like putting it mandatory. Okay, that's amazing.
I actually gave props for that, because like, God knows
amazing.
I disagree with many things about his policies, but that one I am down
great.
with. Like,
Yeah.
you should know how to balance a checkbook.
Exactly.
Yeah, you should. Like, call me wacky.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So now I get to high school. I'm finished up high school, whatever. I somehow or another couldn't cheat on my SATs, but I was able to get a good enough score. But I think I had a really good essay, so I got into Northeastern in Boston.
Oh shit!
There,
Nice.
it was a great school.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get into now.
Okay. Was that on the hallway scholarship? Is that?
It was
yes.
the hallway
Okay,
scholarship.
got it. Yes.
So I get there, and you know, while I'm there, you know, I'm doing what kids do in college. You know, you're drinking, and that's around the time that Netflix and Blockbuster were both together, sending DVDs in the mail. So you know, we're chewing tobacco, like watching movies on Netflix because it's 30 degrees outside, 40 inches of snow, like.
And you're from Miami.
And Miami.
So yeah, no.
I had never seen, like, my body matched my ass. Like, it was the same color. I hadn't seen that since never.
Ever. Like,
Ever.
you didn't know that could happen.
I used to go to tanning booths in Boston because I was so white, I didn't recognize myself. I thought I was sick.
They're huge. Like, no, legit. Like in the Midwest and,
Yeah.
and everything. When the co-host Darian, he lived in East Lansing, because that's where he went to law school.
Yeah.
He was like, I didn't realize tanning salons was such a thing.
Yeah.
He's like, because back here where we live,
No, that's where
you
we're.
sit outside.
Yeah, you sit
You
outside.
just walk to your car.
Exactly.
You'll be fine.
So, you know, I'm in Boston there, and like I said, I'm just being a college kid. You know, we're going out, going to parties.
Discovering yourself, as
Discover
we
myself.
say. Yes.
I never did the fraternity thing, but whatever. I was doing school. I wanted to go to law school, actually.
Oh.
Or my mom wanted me to go to law school. I realized that was a short-lived dream when I would pick up a magazine and all I looked at was the pictures. Like I don't read books. Like that's not what I do. It's not my thing. I do audiobooks, but
Okay.
I don't read. That's not my, you don't find me on the beach with a book. Like to me, that is ridiculously boring. I'd fall asleep in 5 seconds. So I don't do any of that. So I'm in Boston being a college kid, and after about 3.5 years, I was like, I can't do this cold anymore. I need to be on the water. Like, so I pack up my bags, I moved back to Miami, and I finished with a business degree.
Okay.
So I canceled the whole law school thing.
Okay, I was going to ask you, like, so what was the...
I was doing a history major because
Okay.
my college counselor told me that would be good. That or like social science or whatever the hell it's called. So
Right,
I
for
went
law
to
school.
history, yeah. And I realized I hated history, but apparently it was like the thing that I needed to do. So I'm I left Northeastern. I came back to Miami, and while in Miami, my mom's like, "Look, you know, your brother's a doctor. Like, you know, why don't you do some further education and get your master's?"
Okay.
And I'm like, I gotta take another exam. Like, for what? Like, there's no reason for me to get a master's. Like, so whatever. I went to do my master's. Somehow or another, long story, but like, somehow or another, I was able to get into the master's program, the executive MBA program.
Okay.
And I don't know, long story, but so I got in there, and I was the only one because of my GPA and everything. I had to maintain a very high GPA, which I've
Okay.
never had in my life. But kind of besides the point. So because I was going to school at the executive MBA program, I had recently moved out, and I was living on 900 Biscayne, right in front of the arena.
Yeah.
So they're very close to the campus. It's like it's by like downtown. So I'm living there, and I have my mom come over. She helps me, and she's like, "We're gonna go to El Dorado and furnish your whole place." And I was like, "Awesome!" They offer 0% finance for 2 years. I'm like, "I'll buy a bunch of crap that I can't afford, and then I'll pay it off a little
In
by
2
little.
years, we'll be fine.
In 2 years, I'll pay it off." So I furnish everything, and as I finish everything, I'm like, wow, I need art. I ran out of money. I don't have any art, and I had enough to pay my rent for 6 months, but that's about it. No other things. So because I was spending the rest of my money on Soho House,
as one does.
So I went to the store and I was like, okay, I can't find anything I like, and everything I do like, it's $9,000-$10,000, and I can't afford that, whatever. And I'm not buying like artists off the street. Like I want something that's cool that I could relate to. So I said, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna go to the store right down the street, and ID Art was it was called, and I said, look, I need some stuff. I want to paint. So I bought some canvas. I bought a couple paintbrushes. Well, I think one paintbrush, actually, to be exact, and some paint, and I laid the canvas on the floor, and I was like, all right.
So this was like the raw canvas. It wasn't even mounted.
It wasn't
or anything.
stretched, nothing.
It was just
So I got the canvas. Like you go to a museum and you look at the canvas, and it looks like like the fabric side.
Yeah.
So whatever. So I laid the canvas on the floor, and I started painting, and then. You hear everybody when they start painting, they're like, it's so relaxing. I love doing this. I was like, this sucks. I hate it. Like, there's nothing fun about this. Like, I'm having a really hard time. Like, and I was just very persistent with it. I'm like, I'm going to finish this painting. And, like, I didn't start small. Like, my first painting was, I think, 48 by 60. So it was a nice size piece. Yeah.
That's probably why you were like, screw this, because...
Yeah. So I start doing my thing, and like I have a photograph of this girl that I kind of was seeing at the time, and like I used that as the inspo. She was like on a bicycle, and I used it as the inspiration. Then I did like a cool background of like Spain. I still have that painting, and after I finished, I took it to a framer, and I was like, listen, I want to have this thing stretched.
Right.
So when I went to stretch it, he's like, why, did you have trouble painting this? Or like, I don't remember the exact words, but I was just like, yeah, it was super, super difficult. He's like, why did you paint on this side? And I'm like, oh, shit. What do you mean? And he's like, yeah, you painted on the side that wasn't primed. he's like, you bought a canvas primed, but you painted on the opposite side. And I'm like,
that explains everything.
So the reason why it was such a pain and so frustrating is that, first of all, I painted on the wrong side of the canvas, technically. I mean, technically, it's the right side. It all depends what medium you're using, but for acrylic paint, it was the wrong side.
For a novice who's literally just like, this is the first time I'm ever going to do this. Let me buy the biggest piece of goddamn canvas out there. And now I'm also going to do it on the side that everybody should not be doing it.
Yeah. I mean,
because, why not?
It depends. I found this out later. Like, it depends what you're doing. But like back in the day, they didn't prime canvases. So when you go to a gallery, you saw that fabric looking side. You figure that's the side you paint on. So that was just, I don't think it was it was more, wasn't a mistake, but it was just a learning curve. Yes. So the reason why it was so difficult was because I would apply paint and then it would bleed.
Yeah, of course.
So acrylic paint is very watery. So I would draw a line. So that's what annoyed me. I would draw a line and the paint would end up over here.
Yeah.
But I didn't want it over here. I wanted it there. So as I applied layers and layers and layers, it's kind of self-primed itself. So that.
Yeah, but how many layers did you have to apply?
Yeah.
I mean,
it was a lot. So once I laughed at myself for that, then I went to the store and I was like, you know what? This was kind of fun. And I enjoyed it after the fact. I enjoyed the finished product. So I bought 5 or 6 like ready stretched canvases.
Okay.
Prime. Moment my paintbrush touched, I was hooked. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And
you had never painted before that, really?
No,
not really.
No, like I went to school in Gulliver for my high school, and when I wanted to enroll in like one of the art classes, because like I knew how to draw, and
drawing is one thing, painting is another.
But I was very like skilled with my hands, and like so when I wanted to apply to the drawing and painting class, they were like, oh, I just you don't have any experience. And I'm like, we'll put you in like, exactly. We'll put you in like a basics. I'm like, I know myself. You put me in a basics class, I'm gonna run circles around these kids. I know, like I doodle, like you give me crayons, markers, I can draw. I'll draw anybody in this classroom. So I said, you know what? Forget it. I'm not even gonna do it.
And again, it's high school. Calm down.
Yeah. So it was really funny when they reached back a couple of years later, and they're like, "I want to put you in the cover of the alumni magazine." Yeah. They're like, "How did we help you?" They're like, "You didn't."
By telling me I couldn't do it, exactly. I was gonna prove you wrong. God damn it.
But you know what? Listen, I get it. They have their thing. So I ended up. okay.
That's
Okay.
all right. That's all
Sorry.
right. That's his adorable son
I have a crying
in the
baby in the
background.
background.
Oh, he's so cute.
So I ended up, I went back to the store. I got new canvases, but I was like so hooked that I literally walked in, and the owner of the store, his name was Ivan, and I was like, Ivan, listen, what does this brush do? He goes, this does this. I go, what does this brush do? It does this.
So you really had no clue.
No, my education was from the owner of a store where I walked in and I was like, what is it? He goes, this is for like fanning. This is for to do lines. Like I did my first probably 20 paintings using one brush that was probably a half-inch thick, no, less than half-inch thick, and about like a quarter-inch tall. Like, sorry, it was like a quarter-inch by like a half-inch. It was meant to do like more like filling in small places. And I use that to do all my paintings, like every single line, so like I didn't know what I was doing, So,
but there's such a beauty to that, though,
it was amazing.
isn't there? Like,
yeah.
Because looking back now, especially, don't you look back and you're like, if only I knew then what I know now. But at the same time,
oh no,
you wouldn't trade it, right?
I laughed a lot, like internally at myself, but I was like, you know what? Like, one thing I love about it is, I feel like if I would have went to an art school, if I would have went to an art class, they would have started teaching you the certain ways, like those who can't teach kind of thing. Right. So, when you go to an art school or an art teacher, she might be, or he might be, or whatever your pronoun is.
Right. Yes, nowadays we have to ask, of course, yes.
It.
They, them, yes.
It might be, they might have their way of doing things, but doesn't mean it's the right way. It's the historical way of doing certain things. And I'm like, and as you can tell by my stories, like, I don't like being told what to do. I don't like saying that I can't put green next to purple because you just can't do that in the color wheel.
Well, it worked for Barney, so what do they know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Like, if I go into art school or art class, they're going to start trying to put rules on what I want to do. Art is one of those things like poetry and singing, like, like it should be fun. It shouldn't be like, you got to color inside the lines. Like, why?
But I think there's even more freedom with art, specifically painting, than you mentioned singing, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, a note is a note.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to hit a note, or else you're not singing. You're just yelling, right?
Or you're auditioning for America's Got Talent.
Well, but enough about my background. But with art, yes, there's a way to teach the basics, I suppose.
Yes.
But at the same time, your style is different than my style is different than his style than her style. So you're right. It's almost like, do you really have to go to school to learn, so to speak?
The best I could describe it is like when I started doing sculptures. I had a lady who met with her many times, and I was learning how to do sculpt. But the way she taught was the way that I think all art should be taught, which is, here's the utensils for art. Here's the paints. This is the way you hold a brush if you want to hold it like that. Right. Now, here's a canvas. Go ahead and start. And if you have any questions, then ask.
Right.
That's how art should be taught.
Right. In sculpting, I'm assuming it's at least, cut away.
So I started piling up the clay, and I started kind of taking away stuff. And I was like, listen, I'm trying to get like a more of a sharper edge. How do I do that? Okay, use this utensil, and that'll kind of help. You know what I mean? So, like, that's the guidance that should be getting. Not like, okay, you're going to draw this line, you're going to color it like this, and you're going to use this technique to do that. Like, no. Don't tell me how to do it.
Yeah, because if you're Botero, you don't care about a sharp line.
Exactly.
Right.
Or if you're any of these people, what's this guy who just splash paint?
Pollock.
Yeah. So, I feel like if you're given too much guidance, you end up looking like everyone else, so it's a lot harder. So like one of the biggest things that people ask me, Alex, what made you so successful in the art world? Besides the fact that I busted my ass, and when I will get into the galleries thing later, but the fact that I busted my ass, like I had a style that was technically recognizably mine within a couple months of painting, where like you walked in, you're like, oh, that's Alex's piece.
Yeah, that's a Mijares, yeah.
Exactly. So that's a hard thing to do when you go to a school that gives you formal education, unless you're painting like hyperrealism. Then you kind of look like everyone else.
But that's the point. So, okay, you're fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you check those boxes. So, like I love the fact that when I started, like my inspiration came from traveling, where I fell in love with stained glass. Like I would go in these cathedrals and
Makes
watch.
total sense now
Yeah,
that I'm
and
looking at your pieces.
So like if you're a listener and you're trying to figure out what my style is, picture stained glass that moves. So imagine like a Latino version of a glass. Imagine some salsa playing and stained glass moving. That would be my style. So I wanted something that had movement, which would bring my Latino culture. Those the colors, which you would get from a Vidita, like the stained glass, but there is beauty sometimes, like not so much in like quick graffiti, but like you go to like Spain and you see these like all the persianas, the shutters, when they close them, they let artists do artwork on them.
Parecido kind of Winwood
exactly.
walls. Okay.
But on the shutter, so when all the places are open, it looks beautiful and clean. But when it's closed, it looks like just like a street art blast.
It's like a big ass street gallery.
Exactly. So I wanted to incorporate that, even though I don't consider myself a street artist. I wanted to incorporate. It wasn't. Maybe the street art isn't the word, but like I wanted just movement. Like, and how do you portray that? Quick lines. What do you see a lot of quick lines when people do like graffiti tags? It's like real fast.
Yeah, but there's also a fluidity to your work. Like it's a lot of a lot of rounded shapes and curves. It's funny that you mentioned, as I'm thinking of it now, I don't know if you are old enough to remember the sitcom Good Times.
Of course.
Do you remember the
Dynamite.
artwork? Yeah. Do you remember the artwork that JJ? It was a real artist, but that JJ was supposedly creating. It's especially the beginning scene. It's similar to that in the sense that there's just a lot of movement.
Yeah.
Like every piece is, again, we're literally sitting here surrounded by his artwork, which is phenomenal. It's got energy.
Yeah.
There's something, even things that are not moving, quote unquote, like, and we'll get to the Cuba Nostalgia, Caridad Cobre, which traditionally La Caridad is very stagnant, right?
Yeah.
She's very static, but you've managed to give her movement, and I feel like it's playing off of the fact that she is with the ocean, so has the waves, but you've managed to like just bring that up into her.
Yeah.
And so and I will tell you, when they unveiled it at the event at Mitsaye, it was gorgeous, man. Like,
thank you.
It was.
What's funny is that I've had a lot of times when I first started, it was everything that I wanted to create. Then I guess as people felt comfortable with me and I created a name for myself, I had a lot more like commissions, requests. Can I do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? And one of the ones that I had the most of was La Caridad del Cobre. I get a lot of the Hand of Fatima, the Hamza.
Yep.
And I think, those are the two that was like the most requested, like
That's
pieces.
so bizarre. You keep getting all these religious iconography requests.
Super, super weird. But, as I started doing La Caridad, I started, getting more research into it, because I'm like, listen, if I'm going to keep painting this thing, I am, I have a Cuban American.
Right.
My family's from Cuba and Spain and whatnot. But like, I never listen. There's hundreds of saints.
Yeah.
So
There's only so much you know about her.
And what's crazy is that there's two versions of it. There's so many stories about her, and it depends if it was the Afro-Cubans or the other. So. There's a lot to take in, and then it's like, which audience are you going for? Like, is it the Afro or the but like, and it was it's like it's almost kind of like that whole thing with like when you talk about like Israel and then you have like what's the other
Palestine.
Like, no, it's this it's kind of the same thing. Like I'm like, I was posting pictures, I'm like, I'm getting baptized in Israel, and all the comments, a lot of people were like, no, that's Palestine. Like, so same thing, like when I'd painted, like, oh, the blue version is this and the red one's this, and so but they didn't mean it like in a bad way. They were just like, which one is it? And I'm like, I had no clue. So I had to do a lot of research. So
yeah, because they're going to ask you the question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when I did this one, when the Cuba Nostalgia event asked me to do a poster, I'm like, what is something that's very typical? But you notice, man, you go to all these Cuban festivals. What are the first thing they paint? A cafetera, a gallo, a bunch of people dancing.
The domino.
The domino.
Yeah.
It's always the same things.
Right.
But in different ways, or Cuban cars and what. And listen, I respect that. It's awesome. And some people have done beautiful, beautiful work.
And it is part of our
culture. And listen, that was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, I'll paint like a gallo for sure. That's what people are going to love. And then it was like, what about La Caridad? And I was like, but if I do la caridad, I want to do it different. I want it like not the typical like yellow, like the gold with the big corona, like, you know, they're like, because in my head, I'm like, what would I want in my house? Would I want that? No. But a lot of people love that. So listen, I'll do it.
But then it's not you.
But it's not me. So when I did this version, this was the first time that I didn't really define like the outfit in the center and the cape and the whole like, you know, thing, but it had all the items on there, but you kind of had to look for it. But once I finished it, what was weird is that it almost jumped off. Even though it's almost all blue, it was very clear on what it was, and it was very like just. Yeah. And what's funny is when I finished it, I was not happy with it. I looked at it and I was like, I don't know. It just maybe, and I put it to the side, and I came back to the studio 2 days later, and it was dry, and it was just. And the lighting in the room happened to be perfect that day. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, like, this is awesome. Like,
it wasn't done yet.
It was, these paintings, they do change once they dry. They literally become different pieces sometimes because of all the different colors and the textures, and there's oils, and I mix it with acrylics. I mix all these different things.
Oh, it's mixed media?
Yeah. I started because I like the boldness and the thickness of the oils, but I like the quick, like, because I work very quick. I hate sitting watching paint dry. So, like, I like doing, like, acrylic movements and then, like, accents with oils, like these big pigment sticks. And then I can carve into the oils and put, like, a secondary design onto it. So, I love that whole aspect of it. And it was just, it came out awesome. So much so that, like, literally within an hour or two of posting it on social media, not saying what it was for, because I didn't want to announce that yet, I had got an email and sold the piece.
Shit.
So, like...
Okay. Apparently we're not the only one who liked it.
So I was like, so I said the client, I was like, listen, I know you want to buy the piece. I just have to give you a little disclaimer. Like, I have to keep it for a month.
See, yeah.
You know, because I got to showcase this piece. Oh, no worries. Do whatever you need to do. So I still have it. And what's good is that I get to enjoy
staring at it right now.
I get to enjoy the piece. Because there's a lot of paintings that I do that, I mean, I've sold pieces within 15 minutes of hitting social media.
So you finish it, it's out the door.
So the only time I get to really enjoy it is while it's drying. But while it's drying, I usually like to keep it outside because there's a lot of smell and just, you know, it depends if I'm doing oils and, like, I have a baby and whatnot, and I don't want to, like, leave it inside. Like, so I let it outside to dry. Like, so I don't really get to spend a lot of time with it. And so, like, I see it and it goes. And in a way, sometimes it's good because, like, I don't get an attachment to it. Because the more attachment I have, the more expensive it gets.
Now, you guys know the minute he posts it online, you got to bid. You got to bid. If he's holding on to it too long, you're going to pay doble or triple, okay?
So that's kind of, you know, how the whole art thing got here. That's how I got into Cuban nostalgia. But
it's just funny you mentioned that because it is if you're going to describe it again and without doing it justice, it's blue on blue, right? It is, but it's not.
Yeah.
Like, again, the second you unveiled it, I was like, oh, it's like Caridad Cobre. And it's weird. There's nothing there that's quote unquote recognizable as Caridad Cobre, but everything about it is recognizable as Caridad Cobre.
Yeah. And what's cool is that when I first started, a lot of my pieces was, the way I described it was, thousands of puzzle pieces or journal entries put in together, and when you step back it makes one piece. I used to put all these paintings and stuff, and I would hide things throughout the painting, and some people would find it, some people others. But what's the cool thing about my artwork is that it's very open to interpretation. So a lot of my paintings, I don't put any faces. Almost all my paintings, no faces, nothing. So, like, when you look at it, people will see things that I don't see. Or perfect example, I did a butterfly the other day, and this guy walked in here and he was like, man, like, that is awesome, and I love how you put, like, the fish in the wings. And I'm like, what fish in the wings? I'm like, I started looking, he's like, yeah, look, there's like a bass, and you see it, and I'm like, now I can't unsee that.
Right.
Same thing with this, this painting I have over here. This woman's holding a flower. I was showcasing it to these people of this show that's an FX show about motorcycles and whatnot, and Mayans. And she goes, oh my God, I love the painting of that motorcycle. And I look at it now, and I'm like, now I can't unsee the motorcycle. But, sorry, it's funny how everything is, a lot of people interpret things a certain way, see things a certain way, but like I love that. I don't like telling. There's certain collections that I do where it's very personal to me, and I write a whole caption for every single piece because I want people to feel and hear the story. But a lot of my paintings, I rather them tell me what they see before I explain to them what it's about, and even the quote or anything that it's about,
Right.
the story behind the piece.
Right.
Because yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's fun to be able to see that, and the cool thing is also is with that. Slowly, a lot of people who have been following my career, they see the evolution of my painting. They see where I started, where it was very closed in, and now a little bit more movement. I used to go from corner to corner of the canvas, like every square inch was covered in something. Then I started letting it breathe a little bit.
Negative space goes a long way.
Exactly, and that was very difficult for me, very, very difficult to do that. And I'd done some black and white collections. I'd done some ballerina collections. Then I got into sculpting.
What brought you about to get into sculpting? Because
It's a funny question.
I feel like artists may dabble in a lot of things, right? But they do have their one thing that's like, no, I'm going to stick to this. But it sounds like you really, like the sculpting thing really, the bug bit you.
Yeah, I got into sculpting because I wanted to see what the ass of my paintings look like.
Literally the ass of your paintings?
Literally. Like, I would do a painting, and I always wondered, you get to see it from the front. I wonder what it would look like from the back. The only way to do that is sculpt.
Right.
Or you have to put two canvases together, and you paint on one side, and you try to mirror it on the other.
That just sounds exhausting. Yeah.
So that's how it all started. I wanted to see, I didn't want to only create my work in 2D, I wanted to do it in 3. So the way I create my sculptures, not all of them, but most of them, all the really important ones,
Right.
I do them in a way that from every angle you see something.
Okay.
So like I have a caridad sculpture, since we were talking on the topic of that, where in the front you see the actual sculpture, La Caridad, and the boat and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then if you look at it from the side, there's actually, out of her dress comes a conch shell. And then when you look at it from the back, it's a pair of hands praying with a chain going around the backside. And then if you look on the other side, there's like a wave breaking over. So
you're really taking advantage of the three-dimensionality of it all.
Because I don't want you to put my sculpture up against a wall. I want you to put it in the center of your house. I want it to be somewhere where you force people to want to walk around and see what's behind it.
Right.
Because what's the point of doing a three-dimensional object when you're only going to see one dimension?
Yeah, buy a painting.
Exactly, for that you buy a painting. Yeah. It's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, that too.
And all the sculptures I've done, I started off doing a few like in stainless steel and whatnot at my dad's metal fabrication shop. That's where I worked during the day. And then I started doing the bronze once I figured out how to clay sculpt, which it's a lot more work, because
Right.
the old way when I first started, you had to make it out of clay, you had to cook it, and if you didn't clean it out, it would explode. So imagine doing an entire sculpture and then having to hollow it out so you can cook it in this oven, and then you left a part that was a little bit like con masa, a little fat, and if it's fat, it'll crack and explode.
I'd cry.
So imagine, you work weeks on this piece, and if you don't know how to clean it out correctly, and then you cook it and it explodes, you basically have to start from scratch. Now, technology's evolved. Now they have clay that basically you throw it in the microwave for a couple minutes and you can literally mold it.
Okay.
And then you literally go outside in the sun and it makes it like kind of soft, so you can like Play-Doh.
Okay.
And you can mold it whatever you want. Then you let it sit inside and let it cool. Once it cools down after a couple days, it gets hard enough where you can take your mold from it. So you don't have to worry about exploding. Now you don't have a clay mold somewhere lying around that'll fall and break. Once you're done taking the mold, you can grab that clay, and a lot of these guys, they put it in rice cookers. You can literally put it back in a rice cooker so it melts again.
One more thing to use the Hitachi.
Exactly.
All right.
The Hitachi. I'm telling you, they either use... yeah, actually, that is what they... So,
God bless us Cubans. We'll use the goddamn Hitachi for anything.
So you put the clay back in the Hitachi, and guess what? You've now... It's almost like mud. Yeah. And then so you had the sculpture, you broke it into pieces again, and now you can reuse the same clay. The other way around, it costs you like $50 to $100 or something for a box of clay, and once you've made your sculpture, that is now done. And now you can display it which I don't know if people do that. I did that with my first couple, but
Well, I mean, you have it there. Might as well do something with it.
or you can try to sell it. And
Well, yeah, there's that.
But if someone just bumps that thing and it falls over, that's it. It's done. It's
Well, but that's okay. Once it's sold and it's at their house, that's their problem. That is their problem at that point.
So that was the reason why I wanted to get into sculpture, so I could see the entire roundness of it. But the cool thing was, didn't stop there. Then I met some artists from Spain that I met on Twitter, actually, and I flew to Spain, spent 2 weeks out there, and they taught me how to spray paint. And so I got into doing murals and large scale.
You've done a lot of murals here in the city.
And I just wanted to do larger scale stuff. And with paint, the textures of the walls, it's a pain, man. Like you're going to go through paint and brushes. Spray paint is the way to go. So you see some of these guys are like wizards with spray cans. So I'm not that level, but I can hold my own, to a certain degree. And it's fun because you can go around the world painting with other street artists when you find artists.
Well, that's true. And the world is your canvas.
Exactly. So I started doing that, and then it was like, okay, now let's go paint at schools. Let's go paint hospitals. And it got like in the whole aspect of doing a lot of just charity stuff with that, because you could do these massive murals and you give kids paintbrushes, they fill in all the shapes, and then you go up and clean it all, and now you have this beautiful mural that's been touched by 50-something kids and put their take on it, and it just makes it that much more special, to be able to do that.
But there's also a beauty to that, if I may, kind of like maybe you're probably like, well, duh, or maybe you didn't think about this at all, but given what you told me about, your experience in school where, you were the kid who was tactile and they didn't really understand it, there must be something rewarding also to just go back and a class of 50 kids, maybe, there's there's a couple little Alexes in there, right? And they are...
Yeah, I've gone and done several now where I've spoken at schools on career day or whatever. And the first thing I do, and that's why really my focus with my foundation and all that stuff is always to focus on kids, is because I don't want someone to go through what I did. So I'll go and talk to schools all the time. Right. And because now I have a name, people will listen, and it was funny.
You're using your name for good.
Exactly. Yeah.
What's the name of your foundation?
Pediatric Angel Foundation. Okay. So we focus on a bunch of different stuff. Well, parents and kids are incarcerated, or, Overtown Youth Center will work with them. We partner with a lot of foundations as well. But it's kind of like it's a main point where we can fundraise as a foundation, and then we can use our foundation now to fuel the others.
Okay.
Because I just started working with so many foundations, and all these people were, hey, can you donate a piece of this? Can that? And it was excessive,
It's easier to funnel.
Exactly. So I started talking, and the first thing I told all these kids, and I was like, I would look at the teacher, I'm like, you guys are not going to like me talking, but I'm like, look, there's a lot of them are going to push stuff on you, and a lot of them they're not going to understand you. And I told my whole story, and I was like, I hated my teachers. I really did. And it's because they didn't understand me. And I have a painting for a collection that I did called Alexander, and it was 12 self-portraits of moments in my life that got me where I was. And one of the most impactful pieces was the first one I created. It was huge. It's like 8 feet by 9 feet. And the painting has me sitting in a box with a teacher. She's it's kind of like this screaming mouth with has a graduation hat on it to show she's a teacher kind of thing, just yelling at me. And then in the corner in kid type of font, it says, "I'm not dumb, you just don't get me." And I wrote the whole explanation about my whole life on that. And the amount of people that came up to me, or parents that came up to me and were almost in tears, and they're like, this happens to my son and this and this, it moves me a lot. It makes me very sentimental when I even talk about it because of that. So when I go talk at all these schools, that's the first thing I bring up, is that don't ever feel like you're dumb because you think different, because you want to be a poet, because you want don't listen to when your teachers, and I'm like, don't listen when your teachers try to force this stuff that you don't have interest. Do your best at trying to be a good student, get good grades and whatnot, but
get educated.
But make it a point to tell your teacher, try to get a little bit out of your shell and just be like, look, this is who I am. I enjoy this. I'm struggling and learning because of this. It really helps when the parents get involved and they're like, look, my kids have learning disability. Please, this is if you don't know how to teach them, then put them in a school that can. And then it's because my mom always told them, a las malas, you will get nowhere with my son.
Yeah.
So the teachers that knew how to kind of pull me to the side, and I would stay after, and they would stay extra to help tutor me, to like help me get better in school. Those are the ones that literally I would eat out of the palm of their hand, because they would take the time to get me.
Yeah, they made the effort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of these other teachers, it's like they're just there for the paycheck, and they make zero effort to try to understand their students, and they don't understand
But it's also hard when you've got like 30, 40 kids.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
I know you went to private school, but I mean, as a product of the public school education
No,
system, it's very different.
It is more
as
different.
much as they may want to try.
Yeah.
And you're right, some of them shouldn't be teaching to begin with. But then there are others who it's like, I can't get to every kid.
But nowadays, it's such a common problem with kids who are autistic.
There's more awareness.
There's a lot more awareness. So now there's a lot more funding, not in every school, but yes. Yeah, in private schools, yes, or some public schools, yes. But yes, you see a lot of these underprivileged schools, and then you got programs like, that half these kids are going to end up incarcerated, because that's just the way it is. And then, but you have programs like Overtown Youth Center, who what they do is they facilitate a space so kids after school can go there and learn about music. And they tell them, look, you don't have to just be a basketball player to get out the ghetto, or do to make money for your family. Like, you can be a manager, you can be a recording artist, you can be the guy behind who's pushing the buttons. So they teach that whole backside of things, or poetry, art,
the business side, really, in what you were saying earlier is,
and also but the creative side. So like, not only are they giving these kids a safe haven to be at, but the people there, you could see that they put a lot more effort into these kids. And I'm sure a lot of them stay after and help probably tutor these kids and give them that little push and education that they need, that they're not getting in some of these schools. But yeah, it's tough. But it really helps that when you have vocal parents who are like, hello, hey, like,
every time you have an advocate, it's always going to take you further.
Because kids, I mean, think about it. If you feel stupid, are you going to have the balls to go and tell your teacher, like, look, I don't understand what's going on? They're going to think, oh, you're stupid.
No. And most of the times, the kids that wind up doing that are called out as disruptive.
Exactly. And so that was me.
So and that's why you were in the hallway all the time.
No, when I got to Gulliver, like, I think the principal, the headmaster, told my mom straight up, like, if you don't medicate your son, we're going to throw him out of the school. So like, I was like on Adderall or whatever those pills
Did you
are.
Adderall,
Yeah. But like, they had me on all these different things. Like, so I was basically numb. Like, I was being in school, and like, yeah, I could like understand everything that's going on, but like, my personality didn't kick in till the drugs wore off around 4 o'clock, and then guess what? Right in time for sports.
But you were going through emotions.
But then when I got to college, yeah, I was like popping these pills like Skittles, because I could read, like, I would never study for the exam, and then the night before I would take a pill, read an entire book. And
Done.
But then like after I took the exam, I was like, what did I learn? I don't remember any of it.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it was just,
I have that whole issue with when kids learn to, learn to the test.
yeah. Yeah, I was learning for the test, and the moment I walked out, I was like, I don't remember anything I just studied. And that's how it's always been for me.
I have to tell you, I did not expect the conversation to go this route, and I'm loving it. I'm glad, because that's one of the things that I love about having these conversations is like, I kind of walk in and I'm like, okay, well, I'm talking to a guy who's an artist, and he's going to talk about his art, and we did, and it's like, oh shit, but you're like a person, like, it's and that happens so often where it's like, you come in talking about X, Y, and Z, and then it just keeps going all around.
Most
I love it.
Most artists, singers, painters, poets, they always have a story to tell, and that's usually why they become artists, is because, for example, like, I have sometimes a hard time explaining myself, and if I do, sometimes I get a little emotional about it, and
if you could cry, that'd be great for ratings. If you just
he's crying right now.
Right now, the tears are flowing. You can't see it.
So art was a way for me to express myself without having to explain myself. So that's why a lot of times when I post my paintings on my website and stuff, before I never gave explanations. I just said, this is the this was the title.
Right.
And the title was like, woman on chair. Like, now,
right.
I like, for example, I like this collection that's behind me. It was like, it was the whole series is based on a quote that was like, beauty is not in the face, it's the light in the heart. So if you notice, I did these beautiful paintings, and then I defaced all over the woman's face. Why? To attract your attention, not off of there, but on the beauty of her heart, where there's a candle. My piece is starting a little more deeper, and I started feeling like, you know what, people really did appreciate the stories of the piece, not so much just like. And as I felt more comfortable and I got more known as an artist, I felt like it was important for me to tell that portion of the story.
I was going to say, do you feel like that's something that as you've gotten older, you've started to become a little more vulnerable with your art?
Yes.
In a way that maybe at first you were painting on the wrong side of the canvas.
Well, that's
that's
how that whole collection Alexander came out.
Right.
That was those 12 pieces that, dude, like I was there all into the night painting. Like I never painted into the night, but like it was a collection that like I had to get out, and I was drinking some wine. Like I got emotional many times. I was crying a lot of times, but like, because it was all black and white, it was very dark, and I did it all with my hands. I didn't use any brushes, fingers.
But you had to get it out.
I had to get it out, and once I did, I felt like a huge weight off my back. And then when the whole story was told, it felt amazing.
Oh yeah, like cathartic. I mean,
Exactly.
like a release. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. No, it was amazing.
So all of your art starts from. I mean, I guess there are instances where it's a commission. You know, somebody will come and be like, "Hey, I want this with these colors because it's for my living room." I'm sure. But for the most part, all of your pieces are just because it's something that has just started to like bubble up inside of you. And
yeah, I would say out of 100%, probably 15% are like commissions. 50% is what I want to paint, like by like travel and just inspiration I see as I'm going around the world. And then I would say, I don't know where we are on the percentage scale right now.
I don't do math,
No one's keeping track, but I would say like 30% now, or between 20 and 30% now is like things that like I want to get out that I'm feeling, and like getting deeper into like collections.
Okay. Like, yeah, it's something that's just, it's not even an inspiration. It's just like, nope, this is something that if I don't get it out, I'm gonna...
Exactly. So like there's times where I'm at the office and I'm like, something comes over me, and like I could tell my wife, I'm like, I'm not even in dinner. Like, don't bother me.
I'll see you tomorrow morning.
I'm going to, and I go straight there, and I have to get it out, like, because I don't sketch. No, I don't like sketching because, like, I feel like.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like if you sketch, you're like
all this detail is freehand.
Yeah, everything's freehand.
Wow.
Because to me, like, if I had a sketchbook, like, I would do it, and like I might crush it on the sketchbook, and then like I'll do it on the canvas, and I'm like, it was so much better here. Like, so I like to just.
You want to save it for the canvas.
Yeah, and like again, like I'm not like a typical artist. Like I don't sit there in like my dark hall like way, like just like scribbling ideas and writing text. Like it's all just here. And my process actually is funny. Is like I'll get home, and I'll have the idea to want to paint, right?
Right.
But like it comes out even better if I can lay on my couch and I take like a 10-minute nap, like a little siesta. So I think about, I'm telling you, I think about what I want to paint.
Love it.
And then I'll take a nap. And in my, like because I have, I'm like borderline narcoleptic.
Okay.
Like I can get into REM sleep within 2 minutes.
Lucky you.
Yeah. So I'll lay my head down and I'll take like a 10-15 minute nap. It'll feel like it's 3 hours, but I'll dream about the piece that I want to paint because I'm thinking about it so much. Super weird how that happens, but
I'm jealous.
Paintings come to life in my head like that. Sometimes I'll take a nap and I wake up and it's too overwhelming that I can't even paint. Like, and then I'm like, I'll go about just doing life, and then I'll be cooking, and I'm like, I'll tell my wife, like, you know, I think I'm just gonna watch TV. I'll paint tomorrow. And like I'll lay down, I'll start watching, and then boom, it hits me again, and I run outside, and I'm like, and I paint until I finish it. Like I just go.
Really?
Yeah.
So you won't go away and come back?
I don't like that.
Really?
I feel like if I leave, sometimes I might forget something that I had in my head.
You lose the moment.
I move the moment. So what I'll do is if I want to piece out a painting, I'll do it in sections. So like I'll put a rough idea of what I want.
Okay.
And then the following day I'll come back and I'll do like the base colors of what I want, and then I'll come back. So like all the ideas are already on the canvas and the colors are all there. Then I do a lot of like secondary, third, and then I'll come back and then I'll do the oils, and then I'll come back and I'll do the highlights and stuff like that. So like
so the layers.
Yeah, so I'll split it up into sections if I want to do that. If not, I tell people, I said, you know, the reason why it's hard for me to tell people when the first question is, how long does it take you to do a painting? if I told you that answer, you're going to associate time with value, dollar value.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I tell you, oh, a painting took me an hour, you'll be like, well, why am I paying 15 grand for it? But the problem is, it's like that saying, it's like, no, you're not paying for the hour. You're paying for 12 or 13 years that I've been painting. You're paying for that time.
Yes, sir.
For those hours and hours. So the best way I relate it to people is I say, look, I can paint for 6 to 7 hours straight, 10 hours without stopping, right?
Right.
If I put you in front of a computer and you're typing
Okay.
for nonstop, for no cigarette break, nothing,
See.
for 8 to 10 hours, you could write a book that's 400 or 500 pages, could you not?
I mean, by probability, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So what's the difference? When I paint, I don't stop to have water. I don't stop to eat. So when I tell you it's 4 to 6 hours of nonstop, like I can do a painting in the time that I could, like, imagine you could drive to Orlando.
This is true.
You know what I'm saying?
This
so, like,
is true.
When you start to put that time, because people
You
think,
have to contextualize it.
exactly, when you think, oh, it took you 4 hours, they think in their head, oh, in 4 hours I could watch a movie, I can go have dinner,
Right.
like, you know.
Yeah,
so-
no, I would counter it with, like, what the hell can you do in 4 hours? You can't create this in 4 hours.
Yeah. So that's why it's like, I tell people, I can run 26 miles in 3.5 hours. Like, there's
Right.
a lot of stuff you can do if you don't stop.
Right.
You know? So, and like I said, I'm one of those guys that when I start a piece, like, I go and go, like, and honestly, some pieces I've done, especially with my larger stuff, like, I'll go there and I don't even know what I'm painting. I'll just start on the court doing something.
Right.
And after 6, 7, 10 hours, I'll sit down and I'll stare at the piece and I'm like, I came to, you know, and I'm like,
you're in a trance.
where the hell did that come from? Like, how did I even know to do, like, and again, like, I don't have formal training, so everything I do is, like, as I go, I figure it out.
Yeah, well, listen, it has served you well up until now, sir.
A lot of people do say, because they hear the way I've spoke about certain things, and a lot of the pieces that I do with no formal education, nothing, and a lot of people think that, like, I have like almost like God painting through me kind of thing.
Like a savant.
Yeah, so like a lot of times, like I said, I'll finish paintings and I'm like I did this? Or like I'll walk by someone's house who has a painting that I sold years ago and I'm like, oh my God, I don't even remember painting that, but I'm like, oh, it's really cool. Like I don't remember. It's super weird. Like if I just go into a trance, I do my thing and now some, yes, I remember every single detail because it was something that was very special, but like some pieces, like
once it's out, it's out.
I just start flowing and it feels amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's weird. I can't explain it. There's a lot of stuff like this. Like I did the Camino de Santiago 3 times and like I went through churches and I physically saw stained glass moving. I've had a lot of supernatural events. I've been to like in that Camino de Santiago, like it's a pilgrimage. Like I went to the top of a restaurant, like at the top of a mountain. There's no way to get there even by car, so I'd never been there in my life. And one of the guys that was next to me, I was like, I guarantee you, there's a water fountain behind this thing. Like I've been here, I've seen this place.
And yet you hadn't.
And I hadn't.
You hadn't.
And there was a water fountain behind the wall. Like,
how do you know that?
Exactly.
How did you know
like
that?
restaurants don't have water fountains.
Right. There's that. Yeah.
So there's a lot of things like that.
Oh, there goes my favorite little co-host.
There's a lot of things like that that's happened to me where like I do feel that this was my calling, and that's why at such a young age I was given the ability to draw and doodle everything I saw. Right. And now as an adult with, you know, a name as an artist, what am I doing? I've gone back and I'm mentoring kids. I constantly teach kids everything I know, and I give them a voice, you know. So
that's
like
important.
You know, I think that I was definitely put on this earth for a bigger calling, and I think that by me doing all these things and having all these deja vu moments, especially all related to a lot of art related stuff, I feel like I'm, you know, they say when you have deja vu, it's because you're there, you're in the place where you're supposed to be.
Right.
And so I feel like, where am I going to go in life with this? Who knows? I would love to take this career slow and steady, like a Picasso kind of vibe, like, you know, where I'm painting until 80 years old. I've always told everybody I don't want to be that famous right now. I don't want to be white hot. White hot is too much pressure to always maintain perfection.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Slow and steady.
Right?
I like the slow and steady pursuit. I like that I paint when I want. I like that I don't sell my soul to the devil. I like that no one controls me. When I first started painting, I reached out to a bunch of galleries, and a lot of them told me, no, it's not a good fit, or it was all these excuses,
Claro.
And I get it. It's fine. That's what they want to do. And then as I became a name for myself on my own, then they all wanted to represent me, and I was
Right.
like,
I wasn't good enough over
but I was
2 years ago.
I was like, now, with social media and the email database that I have, galleries are all online. And you know what the thing is? That most of my collectors, almost all of them, they all want to meet me in person. They want to deal with me directly. So why would I put my art in a gallery that is a middle person, and they're going to inflate my prices to a certain degree, and then once they're done with me, they'll drop me like a bad habit, basically.
When you're no longer quote unquote hot.
Yeah. So I rather just grow at my own pace. Listen, I would eventually like to work with some nice galleries, some good brand name galleries where they're bringing a clientele that I don't have.
Right.
But if you're going to be a gallery and you're going to tell me, listen, we're going to represent you, but all your Instagram posting and Facebook, you want you to tell all the people that your artwork is at my gallery. And
you're doing the marketing.
So if I'm going to do all your work, what's the point?
Why am I paying you for this again?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to give you half of my earnings.
So you can light my painting.
Yeah.
In a wall. Yeah.
So, but again, I'm not here to shit on galleries, but I just think that.
Well, but no,
times are changing.
But I was going to say you touched on the fact that there's a democratization of art now.
Yeah.
Whereas before, you could only go into a gallery to see
art.
these types of these types of canvases, and now you can go on Instagram.
You could be be on your couch and you're like, wow, you're following this guy. Yeah. You can see my whole career. You don't need someone to explain my life story. You look at my life literally as I live it.
Yeah. I don't need somebody who has decided that you are cool enough for me to know about.
Exactly.
I can know about you because I like your art.
And the funny thing is that because I live my way like this, when I tried to apply to Scope, I got blacklisted.
Really?
Even though they're like, you have to be a gallery. So I have my own gallery. I represent myself. I have a gallery.
It's a gallery.
I started a gallery called Black Hat Gallery. I had a corporation, everything all set up. And still, why? Why? You want my opinion? Why? Because if I give hope to other artists that they can do it on their own, then you can kiss goodbye to galleries.
Yeah, you were mucking up the system.
So imagine I couldn't get into a tent saying I would pay $35,000. I'll pay $40,000 right now to be in the show. Why? Why not? Why can't I pay to play? Well, and it was all this red tape, and I said, you know what? Again, screw this. Why do I need to let these people dictate my career or where I want to go? So you know what I do? I put all my attention on promoting myself as much as I can, and I let my artwork do the talking.
And it has.
Listen, I wouldn't say that I'm the best artist on the planet. Hands down, I've seen some people where I'm like, wow, this guy runs circles.
But that's subjective.
But I do feel that what I have is I have a whole package in a sense where I'm very outgoing. I'm constantly out there meeting people, talking with people. I market myself, I think, very well. I don't have a marketing background, but I think I do a good enough job.
I do. You do. I can speak to that. You do a good job, sir.
And you know what, man? I think of myself as being very humble. I don't flaunt anything. I'm not one of these artists that, is showing what kind of watches I have and my cars and showing this lifestyle that's not real.
You're not doing it for the gram.
Yeah. I can go and be like, oh, I could buy $100,000 watches and be like, look at me. But what am I going to do for the younger generation by doing that? Nothing. You're
that, and what does that have to do with your? But what does that have to do with your art?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
But it's funny that there's a lot of people who follow those type of accounts on social media, and these are artists that I look at, and I don't respect them. Why? Because I'm like, your following is not because of your art. Your following is because of the things you can buy.
Yeah, the lifestyle.
And And again, listen, to each their own. Like, if that's the path
if it makes you happy, knock yourself out.
if that's the path you want to go and that's your style, listen, go for it. I applaud you. If you can, feed your family by doing whatever it is that you want to do, then do that. For me, I like to be, I like to do my own paintings. I don't like to hire people to do my stuff. I like to market my own stuff. Why? Because no one's going to market it better than me.
Damn right.
I like to meet my clients. Why? Because I'm a living artist. You should be able to break bread with me, because why the hell not?
You didn't even think about that. It's like, shit, yeah, you're a living artist. Like, duh, yeah.
Wouldn't you love to share a cup of wine with Picasso? Like,
hell yeah.
There's a lot of people who got to do that because he went all the way to 80 years old. Like, not like these Basquiat that his paintings are going for $2 million, and the guy basically OD by 20-something years old. Like,
right. He's not here.
He didn't have a life. He didn't get to enjoy himself.
Right.
Like, people almost prided on themselves at the fact that he kind of killed himself.
Yeah.
Like, the guy was depressed, and now his art is all over the place, going for millions of dollars, and who gets that?
Making money for everyone but him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's why I always say, like, definitely support local living artists. Like, we work really hard. Like, I work really, really hard to become a painter. And that's one of the reasons why also Art Basel the last couple of years I've kind of sat on the sidelines a little bit, because like you got Kanye West doing a show in the middle of the thing, and it's like I busted my ass for months to build up a collection that now Kim Kardashian's in town painting something, or like there's a Tupac hologram in the center of Wynwood, like, and now
no vayas tan lejos. We have had many opinions about Art Basel. We have expressed them on this show. We love art. We love
It's just got to go back to being about art.
But the minute you got a banana with duct tape, we're done. Okay, we're gonna call that the line.
Yeah,
like.
But again, like I said, like I became a painter because I wanted to fill my walls, and then I became a painter because I wanted to express myself, and now I became a painter because I think I can use my name for good. And in the end, I get to color my walls filled with art. So,
well, you know what, sir? I will say I am glad you became a painter, because I have, like I said at the beginning of the interview, I have enjoyed your work for a couple of years now.
Thank you.
Like literally when we started this, you were one of the people that I had always wanted to have on the show, because I was like, well, if I can't use the show for selfish reasons to meet people that I want to meet, then why the hell even do this? But literally sitting here, chatting with you, it's been awesome. Like, it's like I said, I anticipated coming in and like, we're going to talk about this, and I love everywhere that the conversation went, because I think, it shows people that to your point, yes, the canvas is who you are, but there's also a person behind the art.
Yeah, of course.
And now I hope, based on this interview, they have a little bit more understanding of, the full Alexander Mijares package, as it were. So, man, thank you again for stopping by. I mean, we've been talking for an hour, and it's crazy to me because I feel like I just sat down.
Yeah, it is.
And you have a 1-year-old, so I don't want to take up any more of your time.
Yeah, I keep getting the stank eye. He's got to go to sleep. If not, I'd probably keep talking.
And I would keep going because I'm having a fucking great time. But thank you again, man. And for those of you who want to check him out on Instagram, it is at Mijares, right?
Yeah, Mijares.
Yeah. So, and if it's the Mexican singer, it's the wrong guy. not that Mijares.
He actually is related.
Is he?
Yeah, so my dad's dad had 22 brothers and sisters from Spain, from Asturias.
Okay.
And his family is from Asturias, and so is also Jose Maria Mijares, the painter.
Yeah.
He's also related, but he's like a distant uncle because of those 22 kids.
Okay, eventually
it spread out. But yeah, my mom actually bumped into him at a supermarket, and he is related. Like, we don't physically like have his phone number and call him. But he is.
You go far back enough.
Yes, I mean Mijares is not a very rare name.
Yeah, that's why.
I mean, it is a very rare name.
It's a very rare name. Yeah. I'm like, they must. But I don't want to be that assumption either, where it's like, well, they must know each other. I'm like,
I've never met him, but it is a relation.
No, mira.
It's not like Gonzalez.
We'll end on that, because that's a button on it if I ever heard one. Okay, again, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.